Well, hey there, YouTube. It's Petey, and I'm feeling a little better. Last month I went through 4 days of hell, and this month it was about the same thing. They have opiate shortages. I take some pretty heavy duty stuff prescribed to me. I don't abuse my medication. As a matter of fact, I never take all of it. I always set some aside in case there's an issue refilling, and there was. Last month it was 4 days late, and I consumed pretty much my stockpile because this has been happening. It's hard not to take everything I'm prescribed. If I do that, I suffer. And if this goes on for a few days, the withdrawal symptoms are incredibly powerful. Last night was hell. I went to bed at 5. I had a panic attack. I had to have some kava tea. It's a brand, I think it's Yogi tea is what it's called. And it's their kava tea, and that's my Hail Mary. Anyway, I made a video talking about all that, and it was like over 20 minutes, and it's difficult for you to understand that unless you're taking that stuff for chronic pain, it just doesn't make for a good video, and it makes me vulnerable, putting all this information out there. But that's what I've been going through. They had to rewrite the prescription because apparently every pharmacy, no one has this medication anymore. They're out of it, and there's no explanation why. There's no refill date. People have been telling me they've been out of it for a month. I called as far as an hour and a half away. One person told me that this is theft, or that the medication has gone missing at the warehouse. And I said, "Oh, you mean theft?" And then they became argumentative with me and said they didn't say that. And they said they weren't here to argue with me. Anyway, it's been a lot of being on hold for 10 minutes plus, and then finally getting someone who is incredibly agitated and rude because you're calling about something that everyone else is calling about and they don't have it. So I'm going to be experiencing significant withdrawal because it's a 35% taper, which is way more. I've been on this stuff since 2008, 2007. I've never abused my prescriptions, never. I know someone who does. And that's just not my choice. I would not want to live that way. You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to have a real high week and then plummet into the depths of hell for that final week when you're experiencing withdrawal. So yeah, that's what I've been dealing with. Last night was the worst. It was really bad what I went through. But I managed to get to sleep, taking some over-the-counter stuff, some home remedies, and that Hail Mary with that Yogi tea. So anyway, that's not really the subject of this video. I don't know if you noticed, I put some stuff up about a Harry Nilsson cover album that I really enjoyed. Alessandra Neiswanger did a Nilsson tribute. And you notice when I say that, I say Harry Nilsson. That's his name. His name is Harry Nilsson. Now, he was a banker. He was one of the first people, he was the first employee at this bank in California that learned how to operate computer punch cards. So he was a computer operator. And this position left him with extra time, which he used for writing songs. my kind of guy. Now, when Harry brought these songs to Tin Pan Alley, it's known as, this is where songwriters would bring these songs and try to make money. And it's all these publishing guys' offices. Harry brought his songs down there, and they said, "Well, gee, kid, you've got something here, but nobody's going to be able to deal with that name of yours. So we're going to change your name to Johnny Rocket." Look up Harry Nilsson's first name. I think it's Johnny Rocket. I think that's what they called him. Which, if you know Nilsson, you know you'll find the irony in that name that picked it, because that's the last thing you would want to call that guy. Johnny chronic depressive slump, maybe. Johnny Depression.
I'm still looking.
So, being a Nilsson fan means you're in a bit of a club, because just like they say in the trailer, the Smothers Brothers, or one of the Turtles, one of those guys says, when you say that name, people either light up and they get it right away, or they have no idea who you're talking about. There's no in between. And I've been in that club ever since I was here on this earth, because
Johnny Niles.
Johnny Niles.
N-I-L-E-S.
Okay. I think there was a rocket in there somewhere. Anyway, my dad was a Nilsson fan, and that was the first music as a baby that I heard was Nilsson music, because my father did not play any music if it wasn't Harry Nilsson. And this went on for years and years and years and years. And if we were in the car, it was Harry Nilsson, because he had a tape deck in his car. He always had a tape deck in his car. So, yeah, that's one of those things, you know. I'm a Nilsson fan. When we had the family band with our 4-year-old daughter fronting it, we did think about your troubles. And it was one of the proudest moments for me, was performing a Nilsson tune with my family band. Really cool. I did all the sequencing. Performed all of the music using synthesizers and a drum machine. And I played guitar and sang on it, and my wife played the bass. Now, here in Chicago, there's a famous shock jock. It was a guy who actually preceded Howard Stern. The first shock jock that there ever was is this guy named Steve Dahl, or Steve Dahl, as people like to call him incorrectly. It's not Dahl. It's spelled D-A-H-L, so it's Dahl. Steve Dahl. So I'm a huge fan of Steve Dahl, and I was on his show one time. I called in because he mispronounces Harry Nilsson's name. He calls him Nielsen. Now, Steve met Nilsson in Hawaii, in Honolulu, at this resort hotel. And Nilsson was drinking some pina coladas. Dahl is drinking Mai Tais. And Dahl is starstruck. Dahl is he's really irreverent guy. Okay? And he's just like, you don't understand how great you are. He's drunk and he's just gushing, going through all these albums. And like the point, oh, and he just, the waitress just keeps bringing these drinks all day. And Steve got so intoxicated, they had to carry him up to the hotel room. And he went and got in a shower, turned the hot water on, and when he woke up, he had passed out in the shower and he had drained the hot water for the entire hotel. Oh. You have to understand, like, Nilsson was the guy who got John Lennon in trouble. He turned John Lennon on to these Brandy Alexanders. There was a drinking club. Nilsson, he had a family. He met this beautiful young girl who worked at a flower shop, I think, right?
Oh.
Or no, it was a clothes shop. He saw her in the window. And he went in there and talked to her, and he asked her if he could take her on a date. And he came back with this huge thing of flowers and a limo. And he married that woman. He had a bunch of kids with her. And that was his wife. And like, there are people that know, like, going to dinner at the Nilssons and like the whole thing, like. But typically, Harry was known, he would show up at your door at like 3 a.m. And you knew you were in. He had a taste for cocaine. Harry loved to party. He loved to drink. And like, they had this Hollywood vampires. I know that's been tainted by that creepy guy. I don't like that guy. I really don't like that guy. I wouldn't be surprised if time tells us some horrific things about that guy.
About who? I missed.
Johnny Depp.
Oh.
About eating children and stuff like that. I something about Johnny Depp gives me a vibe, and plus he represents everything about rock and roll and guitar that I don't like, which is that dress up thing, having to look like a pirate pimp. I do not like that guy. I really do not like Johnny Depp. I just get a vibe from him. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's just a good guy and he's got a bit of an insecurity complex, so he dresses like that. But I don't know if you've seen him, what he looks like since he's assumed this role. But yeah, the Hollywood Vampires was a drinking club that consisted of Harry Nilsson, Ringo Starr, Keith Moon. Harry was best man at Ringo's wedding. Mickey Dolenz. I believe Alice Cooper was in it. John Lennon was in it. But like, the original thing was those guys. And what it was, there's a club called the Rainbow Bar and Grill, and it's on the Sunset Strip. And the owner of that bar was always cool to musicians, and he would give you a break. Like, you could come in there and drink, you could come in there and eat, and get a line of credit, oftentimes, if other people would vouch for you. So that guy was cool, and I've always heard that about him. He helped people out. He had people, you couldn't run up a tab. You could come in and work it off doing dishes, stuff like that. Now, the Rainbow is also famous because Lemmy Kilmister, the guy from Motorhead, that was where he spent the end of his life, was at the Rainbow Bar and Grill. They had a video trivia machine that he sat by. And if you bought him a rum and coke, he would let you take a selfie with him and talk to him, but you couldn't come up and bother him. He would tell you to go hit the pound sand. He would tell you you weren't really supposed to bother him unless you bought him a rum and coke. And then he would take time. But upstairs at the Rainbow Bar and Grill, they had a little attic area where you could go up there, and there was a couple of tables. And that's where these guys used to sit. And they would sit up there because nobody could see them. They wouldn't get hassled. This was their safe haven, and it was a drinking club where they drank brandy Alexanders. And they painted up there on the wall, home of the Hollywood Vampires, and then they all signed their names, who was in the drinking club. And the drink of choice was a brandy Alexander, which is brandy mixed with milk. And I knew a guy who he read about that. This guy, he was a guitar player, and he was talented, like unbelievably talented guitar player, like phenomenal. The best guy I ever worked with. Like, the next guy down is down like here, where this guy's like up here. And this dude was a egomaniac. He was violent. He was like any word you could think to denote an evil person that you would not want to be around was this guy. He was just a worst person. But he could really play the guitar. Like blindside you. And he was into metal. Like, he could play all of the King Diamond, all the Andy LaRocque stuff. He could play all of that. And he started to get really goofy on me. And he ended up, he took off. We were recording, and he took off and went to LA. And I've got some stuff. He sent me some stuff that he recorded, and I don't know what happened to him. The music was really subpar, the stuff that he sent me. But that guy went through a Brandy Alexander phase. He used to go and get these little bottles, like a pre-made cocktails for two, I think it was called, and they were kind of pricey. And you would mix it with milk, I'm pretty sure was what it said. And man, he loved, I never even tasted it. I didn't want to, the way he drank those things. And he'd get goofy off of them, and he kept wanting me to take him back and get more. And then they ran out of them. He drank all the entire stock in a couple of weeks, and then he started drinking Ringo did this. It was called Sun Country Wine Cooler, and it was a 2-liter of wine cooler, and he was buying those because it was related to a famous musician. It was Sun Country. It was Ringo. So he switched off from Brandy Alexander's to, because he drank them all, and then he'd be drinking these A 2 liter. And of course, it was like drama with the police, and So this particular drink, the Brandy Alexander, is nothing to toy with, and this was what these guys were drinking. Now, mind you, they were doing blow to counteract that, and that does help out. It'll keep you drinking longer than if you didn't have the blow. But that hangover, if you're talking mixing cigarettes, alcohol, and cocaine, the hangover from that is nothing to write home about. It's really something horrific. So you got to admire those guys. These were professionals. Now, Steve Dahl always mispronounced Harry Nilsson's name. And so does everyone. Everyone mispronounces Harry Nilsson. And they say Nielsen. Anytime there's anything about Harry Nilsson, people are mispronouncing his name. They call him Nielsen. And Dahl was on the radio going on about the scene in Goodfellas where the helicopter and the guy's in the car and he's looking up and he's doing blow. And he said, Steve Dahl says, "Gimme Shelter" is playing on the radio. And it's not "Gimme Shelter." It's a Harry Nilsson song called "Jumpin' to the Fire" is what's playing on the radio in that scene. I know, because it's a Nilsson song. And if there's a Nilsson song in a movie, I usually know about it. Usually. So I called Steve Dahl to set him straight. And I thought it was a good idea. And then when I'm on hold, I started getting lightheaded. And I'm like, man, this guy, I've listened to this guy every day, my whole life. And he's really cocky and irreverent. And here I am going to, tell him, you're wrong. And he was. So I almost passed out when I got on the phone. That was the only time I was ever on. And not only did I correct him about that, I said, and you're also mispronouncing Harry's name. You keep saying Nielsen. It's not Nielsen. It's Nilsson. Nilsson. And if you know, Harry's real name is Nilsson. It was changed. And there was all of this record company pressure about his name to take letters out of it, because people would get confused. They wouldn't know who he was. They would think it was a misprint, because his official name on the records is Harry Nilsson. His real legal name, his real family name, was Nilsson. So it's double L, double S. And it got to be a thing with him where he made fun of it, and there's an album called Schmilson. Jewish thing. Schmilson. And then there's another album called Son of Schmilson. And the Son of Schmilson album is the best Harry Nilsson album. It's the best one. You couldn't make this stuff up. It's by far the best Harry Nilsson album. There's no, for me, other people will, everybody's got, Pandemonium, Shadow Show, The Point, whatever. Flash Harry, nobody's favorite Nilsson album. And he did the Popeye soundtrack for Robert Altman's Popeye film that had Robin Williams and Shelley Duvall in it. But no matter how you slice it, like any Nilsson album you get is going to be great. He did an album. He did an album called Nilsson Sings Newman, where he did Harry Newman songs, and he had Newman. Randy Newman played piano, and Nilsson sang. It's like it doesn't get any better than this. Randy Newman played piano for Nilsson. He's this famous vocalist. But I mean, Nilsson, he had something magical, you know. And if you know Nilsson's music, you understand what I'm talking about. So this is a thing that's a bitter pill for me, hearing people talk about this guy who, like I always say, Nilsson's music, it's up here. It's like down here, here's the Beatles. Okay? They're like at the top of the thing. But Nilsson's up here. He's... You can't touch it. You don't talk about it. Don't look at it. You know, it's sacred. Nilsson's music is just on another... It's in another universe. It's so good. And it's very difficult for me to listen to without just completely breaking down emotionally. But it's a never-ending source of fury for me because no one says his name right. Everybody calls him Nilsson. It's like, it's not his name. Can't you fucking read? It's Nilsson. What's wrong with you? And like, Dahl met him. And he's on the radio going, Nilsson. Like, dude. And the reason that people call him Nilsson is because everyone calls him that. No one has ever heard anyone say Harry Nilsson. But it's right there. It's spelled for you. Nilsson. 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 It's like, how you get Nilsson out of that, I don't know. I do not know. But today, I was watching one of these YouTube videos. It's a list video about rock stars who got screwed. And we're watching this video, and they've got Willie Nelson. His name is spelled Nelzon. Willie Nelson. And I think they did it that way because the audio for the video was done by a computer. It's a computerized voice, okay? And they were talking about Rocky Erickson. This guy, it's Rocky Erickson. But his name is spelled Roky. That's how you spell Rocky's name. It's pronounced Rocky. It's spelled Roky. So the computer reads it Roky Erickson. You see where I'm going with this? I'm just going to play it for you. So here's this video that's got all these rock stars, and the computer is saying their name wrong. Okay? It's got everybody's name wrong. And then here we go. Are you ready?
Harry Nilsson. Harry Nilsson was the talk of the town back in the late 60s and early 70s. This guy was on...
Well, I shut my speakers off. But did you hear that? The computer pronounced his voice perfectly. Because that's how it's spelled. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I just had my moment of redemption here. And I hope you enjoyed the video today. I had a lot of fun. If you haven't checked out Alessandra Neiswanger's, if you're a Nilsson fan, and you haven't checked out Alessandra Neiswanger's Nilsson tribute album, you should do that. If you're not a Nilsson fan, there's a movie, Who is Harry Nilsson and why is everyone talking about him? You can check that out. There's a book. There's a couple of books that I want to get. Anyway, you guys, we're coming up on a half hour. Oh, we're over the half hour mark. I got to go. You guys try to stay warm. Hug your pets is what I always like to say. Give that pet of yours a huggy and peace.